Okay, so pick up again Marston Moor, the 1700 turn. Parliamentarians are the first player throughout the battle for each turn. So first we do an order phase, and we have the command change. Something to always remember is at the start of the game turn, both players attempt to change orders. Okay, so we know, and one way to do it, one good way to do it is to lay out your, your proposed orders, the orders you want. So Manchester, I'm going to try to change his from advance to attack. 11, I'll wait on 11. Fairfax wants to continue his attack. And obviously Cromwell will continue his attack. On the Royalist side, stand, and maybe, for interest's sake, maybe Ethan here will try to change his from stand to attack. Maybe he'll try to go over to the attack. So we'll put his there. Now, the procedure. Again, not sure I went over this in much detail before, but so you look at your leader, Manchester, and again, the lower left value is his command value. So in this case, Manchester has a 2 command value. So I'm going to roll against that. Rolls a 5, and then he wants to roll 2 or less to change his command. The only modifier is that if he is within the command span of his overall leader, which he's not, Fairfax is way over here. So he's not within the command span of his overall leader, so there is no -1 die roll modifier for that. So he rolled above his command rating, his modified command rating, so he is not able to change his command. That's the second time he's failed on that. So then we go over to Ethan. He also has a 2, and he also is not within the command span of his overall leader. Rupert is still over near where he began the battle. So Ethan, he rolls to change his order, and he rolls a 3, which again is too high to change his order. So that's the command phase of the turn. Now we go to the first player movement phase. A quick scan. Okay, let's talk about command span, because this is what we're checking. The player checks to see if units are out of command, and those that are out of command are marked with, where is it here? Yeah, if they're out of command, they will be marked with an out of command marker. But this is how we do it. Again, command span cannot cannot be traced through enemy Zocs or enemy units, except that you can trace through enemy Zocs if occupied by a friendly unit. So what we do is, let's look at Cromwell here. So here we have Cromwell. Get it all in here. Okay, here's Cromwell right here. He has a command span of 6, above average. Count from the leader to the unit. 1, 2. I have to go around the enemy unit here, because his Zoc is being exerted here, and there's not a friendly unit there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He reaches Norwich here. So Norwich right here is in command, because he's within the command span of his leader. Vermiden is beyond here, 7 hexes from Cromwell. He is still in command. Reason why is because a unit is in command if he is adjacent to a unit that is in command. In other words, you can string units. And you can string units as far as you want, as long as they are adjacent to each other and they trace back to a unit that is within command span. Right, so 6 to Norwich, he's in command. 7 to Vermiden because he's adjacent to Norwich, who's in command. So otherwise, you're tracing around enemy units here, and everybody's in command on the parliamentary left. Everybody's basically together still with Levin here. So everybody's in command span there. And by the way, well, it doesn't, I won't talk about it, but units can also trace to the overall commander, can trace command to the overall commander. To emphasize, combat units may trace command from an overall leader, even if not assigned to the overall leader. When tracing to an overall leader with no command chit, the combat units may follow their own leader's command chit, or they may move 1 hex only, and in the next turn's command phase, the owning player may place a command chit under the overall leader to be used by all units tracing command to the overall leader. Yeah. So, but it doesn't matter here because Fairfax is with Levin's forces there. Manchester's forces are all still in command, and Fairfax's are all still in command. By the way, this is actually what I wanted to show. Manchester's here. He traces 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hamilton here is in command because Hamilton is adjacent to Ray, who is in command. And this is what I mean by you could string, another unit and another unit. You could just keep going because they would be traced through a line of succession to Ray, who is in command. All right, that's that. So parliamentarians are all in command. Nobody is marked out of command. Don't like the sliding so much. Okay. Now movement. And again, one of the most important things in the game is to constantly pay attention to your command chits and your command capabilities and limitations, because it really is the heart of the game. It makes it very interesting and fun to be limited by your orders. Okay, so Cromwell is still in the attack. Remember, with an attack, your units have to keep moving up. As I understand this, I mean, if I understand the design intent here, is that just to review again, attack command chit. Units must move at least half their movement allowance, any fractions rounded up, and must end their movement closer to enemy units than they began. So, reason why this is significant is because in this game, if you cannot retreat, basically, generally speaking, if you can't retreat, you're going to take step losses. And there is no passing for regular, or I should say, for non-skirmish combat units. There's no passing through friendly units. So Cromwell here, for example, his units have to keep pushing up with their attack command. And maybe I shouldn't use such loose terms as pushing up. They still must continue, to the extent possible, to move at least half their movement allowance rounded up and end closer to enemy units. Until they become adjacent to enemy units, obviously. So these guys are all adjacent. Cromwell's not, actually. See, Cromwell's right here. Cromwell is stacked with Balcaires. And he has to move up. He has to keep moving up. Leslie back here, 1, 2, 3. He's actually able to move half his movement allowance and closer to enemy units. By the way, this isn't a reason to move the routed unit to create a gap so that units can retreat here. So how do you move routed units? Actually, I think I mentioned this before, but I think it's supposed to be 1/2 movement allowance rounded down. Well, I mentioned the discrepancy in the rules. I say look under effects of route. Yeah, rounded down. So the routed unit here is a cavalry unit, probably. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. He's infantry. The movement allowance of 3. So 1.5 rounded down is 1. Isn't that funny? It's going to cost 2 to cross the ditch. Well, I assume he still has the minimum 1 move. Not positive about that, but I'll assume that. Okay, so artillery do not have to follow command chit. They don't. I'm sorry. They don't follow command chits. So in effect, no skirmishers are ever forced to advance or retreat according to the stipulations of the command rules. So I think Cromwell's done everything he can with his formation. They continue to move up to engage the enemy. Levin has an advance command, so remember they may move up to their full movement allowance, but they must move at least 1 hex closer to the enemy. So again, we have Rigby can move, choose to move 1 hex, 1. Okay. So a town is still just 1. So actually Rigby could occupy the town here. I think he will. So start over. It's 1, 2, 3. 2 for the town, plus another 1, 3 for crossing the ditch. Dotting here, we'll move 1, 2 for facing change, and well, no, he'll stay. I'm sorry, he'll stay back there. He'll stay back there to allow for retreats there. These guys are either adjacent or can't move any closer to the enemy. Okay, Fairfax continues to move up, and 11 continues to move his reserve forces, basically reserve force back here up. Alright, so we had, unfortunately, Manchester was not able to change his order here to attack, but in any case, we'll start orienting him towards this gap. So again, the rules make it sound like it's the first facing change is free. There was a later clarification, and clarifications I follow clarifications. I guess the designer intended, and I'm only guessing, I guess the designer intended that if the unit does a facing change as its first part of his move, it's free. Not the first facing change wherever in the move. So Hamilton is facing is doing a facing change first as the start of his move. So that one is free. So 0, 1, 2, 3. Get across the ditch without being stopped by enemy Zocs. So free again. 0, 1, 2. Remember, they have an advanced command, so they're only required to move a minimum of 1 hex closer to the enemy, but they may move up to their full movement allowance. So 0, 1, 2, 2. Leave that there. Free 0, 1, 2, 0, 1. 0. So a full facing change. It doesn't matter how many vertices you pass. So 0, 1, 2, 3 to go up the hill. 0, 1. And then Manchester's got to get over, back up with his guys. but he also must end at least 1 hex closer to the enemy. I would say this is a loose interpretation, though. But at least he can get up here, and that would clearly be as dangerous as this is going to be to pass that artillery. Yeah, it's just a game, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. All right, so Manchester has started to reorient his forces. Remember that +1 going up a terrain level. And there we go. Now Fairfax still has his attack command over here, but everybody's either adjacent to the enemy or can't get any closer to the enemy. So that is all parliamentary movement. Now we go to the first player or parliamentary combat phase. Remember, we start with fire combat, which is defensive, then offensive fire, then we go to melee. So we'll do defensive fire, which means the Royalist. Bunch of cavalry here. Cavalry using the optional rule: do not engage. Do not engage in defensive fire at all. We have 2 infantry here, and they will fire away. Again, I think I didn't see it in this iteration of the rules. I could have missed it, but I know in another iteration of the rules they say very little is said straightforward in these rules, as I've mentioned before. But I clearly infer from the rules, another iteration of the rules, that you can choose your fires 1 unit at a time. However, you must complete all fire against 1 hex before moving to another target hex. So we'll just start here. The infantry right here will fire at the cavalry here. So it's infantry at 1 hex range, which is the range of infantry fire. Yeah, they miss. And now the next infantryman is going to try to fire at the same target, and he misses. We'll go to this infantry here. So I'm going to speed up my fire here. I'm going to speed up the fire here. Just understand I'm following the same procedure over and over again. So infantry to see which one's more dangerous. I think the infantry is more dangerous. So Newcastle's going to fire at Crawford, and finally he gets a 6. So now we're still firing against the same hex. Yeah, I guess we can resolve that. So target hex passes. I'm sorry. No. Back up. Sorry. Are there any modifiers? There are no modifiers. So Newcastle rolled a 6 against Crawford. That is a 1-step loss under the infantry column. So infantry cause a step loss with a 6. So Crawford has a step loss, then rolls for morale. He rolled a 6. He's fine. So he took a step loss, and passed his morale check. Now what I'm getting at here, another Newcastle unit is going to fire at Crawford. Okay, now he rolled a 1, so he plain misses. What I'm getting at, though, is if he had rolled a 5, by the table, that's a morale check. However, Crawford does not check morale again because he's already checked once during this combat phase. Fire phase, whatever you want to call it. But so you can still fire at the unit hoping to get a 6, which would be a step loss. So he would take a step loss, but he still would not check morale again because he already checked morale once during this phase. But you can get another step loss. But that's only because the table allows a step loss. If you're on the table where there are only morale checks, then there's no point in firing again at the same unit if you can only get a morale check because he's already checked morale once. Alright, so Newcastle here, another Newcastle unit is going to fire at the stack here. Now this is, let me make sure that, no, there's no terrain, they're in clear. This is the village, town, village, town. Okay, so Newcastle rolls and gets a 4, so he just misses. Over here in the Royalist center, Moor is going to fire at, okay, Moor is going to fire at, so here's a good example. Here's Moor. I would want him to fire at Yester because there's no intervening terrain, but that's off to his flank and he can only fire to his front, which means he's firing Ashton. He's firing across the ditch, which means that I'm going to go ahead, although I'm not entirely positive about this, but I'm just going to continue assessing the ditch modifiers for both sides across the ditch. Bottom line, it's -1, which means that he can only get a morale check. He misses. Now we'll do the artillery. Now the artillery is going to blast away at Ashton. And this is the artillery at range 1 is +2, -1 for the ditch is +1. Yeah, he misses. Tidsley at Bright, -1 for the ditch. Oh, he's still, so he gets a 6, -1 for the ditch. Let me make sure I got there. Yep. So Tidsley shot at Bright across the ditch, rolled a 6, -1 is 5. That is still a morale check. Bright has to check morale, and he passes easily. This artillery is going to, no, can't fire over here because that's outside his frontal hexes. He will fire at, he'll fire at Ray. So 2 hexes away. And I guess the ditch qualifies because it's adjacent to Ray. Alright, so he misses anyways. Brighton over here, firing here, clear terrain at Fifeshire. Oh, he rolls a 6. So we have another step loss. So Fifeshire starts with a morale check and he barely passes with 8. Artillery here firing at Lambert across the ditch. 5, but -1. Yeah, -1 for the ditch is okay, I gotta pay attention. So artillery 2 away is +1 for range. -1 for the ditch is 5. And 5 is a morale check. So Lambert cavalry, they pass their morale check. Tiller fires at Balgoni. 1 away. He misses. And that's it. So that was all. It was all defensive fire. Now we go to offensive fire. So the parliamentary go through the same procedure along their lines. Where do we have cavalry? Okay, remember, I'll write this down. Vermiden has already conducted offensive pistol fire, basically, under the current attack command. So he's done until he resets his pistols. Norwich has done the same. So I got that recorded, and so they're not firing again. Kirkend has not fired. Oh, but Kirkend does not have fire capability. For whatever reason, there are units here, I assume it's not a typo, that do not have fire capability. It's not automatic. So Kirkend and Leslie here, they have a combat strength of 3, but they do not have a fire capability. Cromwell is stacked with Balkars, which also does not have a fire capability. Sydney has not fired yet. And go ahead and have, so Sydney is under Cromwell, is under attack order. He's going to fire into the flank of, again, infantry or cavalry. I think infantry. So Sydney is going to roll, and they have to get cavalry. I think have to get They have to get a 6. So he misses, and I write down Sydney as having used his pistols now. Fleetwood's going to do his attack against Newcastle. Very small possible. Okay. Fleetwood, same thing. Fleetwood. Okay, so Crawford here. Infantry. He's going to fire at Newcastle B. Okay, he rolled a 5, so he gets a morale check on Newcastle. And Newcastle passes just barely. Crawford here. I think I have 2 Crawfords stacked here. Yes, I do. 2 Crawfords firing at Newcastle here. So the first one misses completely, and the second one misses. Rigby, who's now in the town, misses. Yester fires at Moor, misses. Ashton across the ditch, misses. Cooper to the artillery, misses. Bright to the cavalry, misses. Back here to the artillery, misses. Oh, that artillery can fire too, misses. Fisher fires at Brighton. Okay, he gets a 6. Okay, so Fisher fired at Brighton, 1 hex range, no modifier. So Brighton takes a step loss and has to check morale and passes. And that's it. All the parliamentary artillery up here, I think their lines of fire are essentially blocked. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. And remember, for this scenario, they can only fire out to 6 hexes because of wet powder. Yeah. Okay, so that was offensive fire. Now we go to a melee. We definitely have some melees here now. I'm going to mark my melees. Definitely going to melee there. I'll just mark all my melees and then we'll go through them. I'll be starting over here. So poorly placed lighting again. Okay. Hope that's not too dark. Cromwell is definitely going to melee. Yeah. And I'll talk a little bit about melee in a minute here. Try to break through here. Try to break through here. Really see if we can bust some holes here. A lot of melee. Switch this order. That's not good enough odds. And remember the required attacks as well. All right, I think that's all right. I've got 6 melees marked. So over here, quickly, the steps. The attackers are identified. I'm just going to go left to right, check for morale, see if they're in the fight. Vermiden is in, and Norwich is in. So both attackers passed their morale check, so they're in the fight. Cavalry cannot get away from cavalry. So the defender, Byron's cavalry, they pass them. They have a very high morale of 10, so they easily pass the morale check. So now they're in. Now we go to resolution. I'll just do the attackers first. They have a combined strength of 8. 5 and 3 is 8, so I know what column. It's the third column over I'm resolving on. I go through the modifiers. They are cavalry who are attacking with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ooh, they're going to be out of command next turn. Okay, that's going to be interesting. They're cavalry with an attack command attacking, so they get +1. And you see he's attacking through the defender's flank hex, so he has +2. So it looks like they have +2 for their roll. So roll once, they get a 4, +2 is 6. 6 on that third column is a morale check. To remind me to do a morale check, I put a route marker behind the target unit. That's how I do it now. Remind me to do a route check, or morale check on him. Byron is firing back. He's a weak, only 3. He's on the first column. He is a combat unit with a stand command, so he has +1. And that's all he has. He just has a +1. Ooh, he still gets a 6. Is that? I mean, it's a morale check. That is a morale check. Would have been nothing, but +1 is 6, a morale check. So, again, to remind me, the convention, I'm going to put those behind there. So now we go back. When you both defender goes first, so I'll do the defender's morale check first. So back to Byron. He has a very good morale of 10. He easily passes his. So he is done. Now I go back to Vermidon. Does he? He passes his check. And then Norwich passes his morale check. So the first melee is done. You come here. Okay, first roll for commitment of all 3 of these. Left to right. Kirkend passes just barely. Cromwell stacked with Balcarres. So I'm going to roll and subtract 1 for the leader. He passes. And then Sydney over here. I hope he's barely passed. Barely passed. I'm hoping he's in because he's going to give that flank bonus. Now the defender passes his morale check, so now we go to resolution. Do the attacker first. I'll just do their die roll. Ooh, they got a 5, so that's good. So we have 3. Add up the points so I know what column I'm on. We have 3, 6, 11. So we're on the 4th column over at the 11 to 15 column. Okay, so we go right through our modifiers. Cavalry with an attack command, attacking, +1. Ooh, +2 for Cromwell's leadership. That's +3, and attacking through defender's flank or rear hex +1. So that's 4. So 5 plus 4 modified to 9 is a 1 step loss. I can put that step loss behind, knowing that I'll resolve that. Now Napier melee's back. Well, he rolls a 5. Oops, I rolled the wrong colored die. So he has a strength of 6, so he's on the 4 to 6 column, and he is a combat unit with a stand command. I think it's just +1. So 6 on his column is a morale check. So all of our guys here, we'll check for morale. Okay, now we go back to the defender. He has a step loss, and because he has a step loss, he also must check for morale, and he passes. So resolution on the defender side is a step loss, but no route. There we go. Now to the attackers. They check there. Kirkend he passes. Balcarres modified for the commander. Oh, he still makes it. And finally Sydney. Just barely passes. Okay, so that was melee number 2. Now here. Okay, attackers, morale checks. 8. Top Fleetwood passes. Cromwell's cavalry there is a very high. Yeah, they pass easily. They have a 10. And Crawford infantry pass. So all of the attackers are in. Defender passes, checks and passes, so they're all in. So now we go to the attacker rolled a 6. So we add up the what column are we on? We have 10 and 5, so 15. So we're on the 11 to 15 column. They have an attack command +1. I think that's the only thing. They're not lancers. Oh, I'm sorry. I guess you add these together, which I guess is a nice combined arms effect. Cavalry with an attack command when attacking have +1. Infantry with an attack command when attacking have +1. So I guess you add these together for +2. Okay, +2. So 6 + 2 is 8, which is easily a step loss. Now we go to Newcastle's combat back melee. You get a 4. He's a strength of 4. 4 + 1 for stand command, I think. So that's a morale check. So we'll be checking morale for the attackers there. So we go back to the defender. The defender took a step loss, which means he also must. Okay, he passed his morale check. So again, result for the defender is a step loss, but not a rout. The attackers now have. So we have Fleetwood. Ooh, he rolled an 8. I think he just barely passed again. Very close. Yeah, he just barely passed. Now, Cromwell's probably going to pass a very high 10. Yeah, he passes easily. And then we have the Crawford infantry. Yeah, I'm sure he passed. He only rolled a 6. Yeah. Crawford's pretty high. Morale of 9 there. That's the 3rd melee. Now we go to the 4th melee here. Crawford infantry and Rigby together. Are they in? Ooh. Crawford is out. Top Crawford stalls. They don't make their way to the front, but the bottom Crawford does. We have one of those Crawfords, Rigby. Just barely passes his. So we only have one Crawford. So he's still strength of 7. That's pretty good. But that's how the attack that you plan can really turn out to be different than what you expected. Defender passes his morale check. So they're in. So now we only have one Crawford infantry. 7 + 4 for Rigby is 11. So 11, 15 column. Oh, it's going to be close. He only rolled a 3. +1. +1 for the attack command. Ew. Oh, sorry, it's still a morale check. And it is still a morale check. Okay, so maybe we can push Newcastle back. Now Newcastle fights back. Okay, he rolled a 4. It's probably, was that 5 for stand? I think that's it. So a modified roll of 5 on the 5 column is a morale check. All right, so go back to the defender to do his first. Can he pass his morale check? Just barely. He has a current morale of 9 and he rolled a 9. But pass, so he stands. Go back, we'll do Crawford first. Crawford passes, so he's okay. Rigby forced back? No, he passes his. So that is the end of melee number 4. Now we're coming over here to. Did you guys miss all that? Do apologize for that. I forgot to move the camera, I think. Okay. Here's the 5th melee here. in order. These two infantry are going to try to just do away with that artillery and be done with it. The Royalist artillery there in the center. First, their commitment. Cooper is out, so Cooper does not. They get cold feet. Bright is in. So the artillery crews. Ooh, okay. The artillery crews fail their morale check. What do we do here? I believe that. What was it? I believe that. Yeah. Again, not spelled out if I remember correctly, but artillery units may never retreat during melee combat and are eliminated if forced to do so as a result of melee combat. They may retreat 1 hex as a result of fire combat. I can only assume that that means that they're gone. I don't see how they could. Yeah. Again, I'm not saying that that's entirely clear, but yeah. I also don't think that you advance when a unit fails its morale check in that way. I don't think. Over here, Yester. Is he in? Is he in? Is he out? He is in, just barely. Ashton. Is Ashton in? Ashton is in. Yep. Okay, so they're both in. Now, does Moor stand? Moor stands. Okay, so back to the attackers. They have a combined strength of 10. Do their roll first. Ew. I'm sure they don't make anything with 2, but it's modified for the ditch. They only have an advanced command. Yeah, they don't get anything. Back Moor. Yeah, I don't think Moor gets anything with a 3 either. So that's the end of the melees, and take a short break.